Hello, Steve Roach here at ActionGrid. This is the February ActionGrid New Features webinar. This was originally a live webinar and the recording got a little messed up, so I'm re-recording this. This is not a live webinar, but I did capture the questions from that webinar, and I will integrate those back into this particular recording. So what we're going to cover here today is really just the features that have been added in the past two releases. The release that just went live on the App Exchange January 28th, and then we'll go back one more month just to make sure that anyone who didn't see some of the new stuff captures some of those features. Since this is recording, I'm not going to read this whole list, but lots of stuff to talk about, so I really have to crank through this webinar, but I always talk fast, and I figure you can pause the recording and zoom ahead as you go. We'll go in this order. One thing I wanted to note, though, is that we now have a new service offerings for our customers. By popular demand, a lot of customers have asked us to, go beyond the basic technical support and actually do the work. So we do offer now some paid service offerings for custom action development, full deployment if you like, or some customers have used it to really push their not commonly asked for feature to the forefront of our release. And we'll see some of those actually in today's release as well. So I just wanted to mention quickly with a slide about our performance increases. So this release was a big improvement in performance. We got a 561% speed increase in what we call the Apex remote call, and 181% in what the human eye perceives as the grid being loaded. And that's the only PowerPoint we'll show here today. The rest of it's going to be all demo. So I just wanted to point out, a lot of people I realize don't know this, and probably just never communicated that you can use ActionGrid as a dashboard element. Now that we've got all these great Visualforce page wizard creators, this is what we call the multi-tab, which is a mixture of objects. You can define your objects any way you want, any combination of objects and views. So this is just a great little use case for activity management, or normally you see on a dashboard my tasks, and this is just a more enhanced version. While you can use a reading pane, for instance, to have a fighting chance to actually read what you're supposed to do with this particular task. The next thing I want to show is I'm going to show off our new documentation system, and you'll see in both ActionGrid Explorer and ActionGrid Setup, ActionGrid Explorer and ActionGrid Setup, that we decided to use the white space now to at least point people to the documentation. So there's some videos and things that'll be there, and because it's dynamic, we can update it automatically and not have to touch anybody's org. So look for that to be coming. Now the biggest feature I think in this release is a new wizard in the ActionGrid setup, and what it allows us to do is take a regular old standard Salesforce form page layout, and we've got our related lists, and related lists have a lot of limitations, even more so than the Salesforce list view, right? 10 column limit, end users can't add their own fields, no sorting, row limits, column limits, just limits all over the place. And so what if we could instantly, or at least within 2 clicks of a mouse, add action grids in there and add some value to the experience? So I want to just show that first. And what we do is we just go to ActionGrid Setup, we go to the account, and you'll see a lot of changes to the ActionGrid setup. Really, we're only going to focus on the wizards here, but we did rearrange some of this stuff and added some extra features in here as well. But I really want to call your attention to the 2 ways that you can create interface besides using ActionGrid Explorer. So either creating top level Salesforce tabs like these, okay, those would be regular tab creation, or the multi-tab like you saw on my dashboard. So very intuitive how to create those. And then page layout sort of visual force pages. And those are a little bit different because they are in context to the object that you're on. If you put them on an account, you're only going to see stuff related to that account. So I'm going to do this and press this automatic one, and it's going to read from my page layout. So I'm just going to choose a particular page layout, and I have multiple account page layouts in my system here, and we're just going to press the button. We're not going to do anything else. So 1 click to press the first button, 2 I guess to press the second OK button, and what it's done is it's made a visual force page out of that. Now you can click this hyperlink to go look at it if you're so inclined, but I'm just going to dismiss it, and we'll see it real time here because I'm going to just edit my layout. I'm going to drag that page down into a section which I've conveniently already made just for speed. I'm just drag it right into this little section that I made. This is in a Salesforce lesson, so we assume you know how to make a section. And Salesforce has a little issue. It doesn't make them high enough for us, so I just make that 500 pixels high. You can make it as high as you want. So the idea here is to really bring ActionGrid into the whole org, to let other people start enjoying it. And you're going to see that a lot of people say, well, ActionGrid is too complex. I don't want to really do it here, but now it lets me talk about the next biggest features in this release. So what has happened here, first off, is it has put all of my related lists, automatically read those, the exact order vertically, and the exact columns that were on there, and transform that into about 1,000% better experience. So now, with tasks, for instance, if you had tasks, now you just turn on your reading pane, and all of a sudden, bam, you've got a great way to start handling task management at the account level. At least, if you're importing emails or doing task management, this should be obvious, the value that you see. But one of the big knocks is, wow, this doesn't look like a related list. This looks a little too complex for my users. So we made radical changes to the toolbar in this release, starting with, first off, the ability to collapse the toolbar completely. Now I think if you looked at that and you looked at that, you'd say, wow, that is not too much different. I think my users could probably handle this, and all they've got is the awesome ability to resize, reorder, add columns. You could certainly add color to these, conditional colors, since these are overdue. You could put some red on there for them and then hide the toolbar, and they'd never know the difference. All they'd know is ActionGrid love here with the reading pane and so forth. Okay, so but it gets better. So if we come back to this one, we'll just do these one at a time. So not only can you collapse the toolbar, but you'll see that the view menu has changed a little bit. So because of a lot of our prospects, we're having difficulty finding how to make a new view. The paradigm of saving the view and doing a save as just wasn't being understood by people. So we decided to make a new view. That all it does is the same as a save as. It just clears the name of the view and keeps the columns and everything the same. So that nothing's really changed there, just a different little paradigm. But you can actually move these around. So these are all movable, and you can get rid of them on the fly. So one of the things here, let me get this, I'll just leave it like so. You'll also notice the field chooser has changed. It's no longer just fields, but just in order to decrease the complexity of ActionGrid, we've moved a lot of things underneath this configure button. So that the behavior of the button is, if you click the button, the old palette still shows up. And a lot of people, even veteran users I see, don't really quite understand these splitter controls. So I want to make sure I always explain these splitter controls again. These work like a sliding glass door. You can either pull it shut like so, or pull it open, or you got this tiny little arrow there that I call it the snappy, which is just snap that door closed, and you can snap it back open just as well. So I show that because some of the new features of the toolbar are high configurability. One of the things that we are seeing consistently, some of the big ActionGrid users are doing, is they're turning off these views completely and turning off the configure, not letting their end users do any configuration, kind of par with the related list. And then, because there's no ability to save the view now, there's no save button, you got to save it right here. And if you wanted to, you could turn off the toolbar as well. I'll leave it on in this case, and say OK to that, and then you just collapse that thing, and you're good to go. The only thing that the ActionGrid saved view always saves the columns and the state of the reading pane and all of that goodness, but it doesn't save the state of this configuration palette, if you will. Okay, so there are some other things that are worth showing here, but I'm going to zoom out to a big ActionGrid Explorer to show the rest of the toolbar changes. So let's come back out here, and we'll go to ActionGrid Explorer, only because I don't have any tabs set up. And at the end of the call here, what we'll do is we'll use one of the other wizards and make an ActionGrid tab, because I still see a lot of actual customers still using ActionGrid Explorer, and that was really never our intent. This was just for the first few minutes, or for admins to be using this. But for right now, just I'm going to use the regular ActionGrid experience here to get at that, and I will. Looks like I left my view that way from last time, so I'll turn on my views and I'll reset that. And so what we have here is the rest of the features of the toolbar itself. So if we come here, you'll see now the reading pane has some new options as well. One of the options has been, people had said, well, I want to turn off the actual reading pane itself, or maybe I do have chatter but I'm not using it. And previously, if we detected that the chatter was enabled, we would just put those on there. So by popular demand, people want high configurability, you can get rid of those. Then the next one that's very exciting is the ability to put in visual force pages into the reading pane. So one idea, and this is one that is not part of the package, but I'm happy to send this along to anybody, is sometimes you just need to see the form. You might have data on the grid, but you maybe need to see it vertically because you just have too much data. That is one use case of that. So that's a visual force page. The one that I can provide to you is all done with field sets, so it's generic. You can just plug this in and change your field sets, and it'll show whatever fields you desire. So that's a great little use case. And by the way, we just a minute ago created a visual force page ourselves for that account layout as well. It was the account detail page, didn't we? We just made the related lists page. So in a sense, I know this is a little goofy looking, but if we look here, make this a little wider, that's actually the related lists of that particular page. Here we have our Denver Broncos again, and we've still got the same related list, because it's, after all, just a visual force page. So ActionGrid's smart enough to know to pass in the ID of this row into that visual force page, and you can do great things with that. Now, another use case of this visual force page concept, although we're getting, since the release, we've got all kinds of people talking to us about ways to use this. And one other method of using this is on something like an opportunity screen. So here you've got the opportunity itself, but once in a while you need to be able to go up into the account and edit data on another object. So in this case, you can go up through and use the reading pane here to actually edit data from this particular record. So if I was to, type this in, and this functions just like a regular old Salesforce form, and you just save it, and you're good to go. So that's one way to edit parental data from the actual object. Although you can look forward to us actually allowing full editability to both the core record, in this case opportunities, and parental fields like we've got here. In this case, we've got the account.division field, and right now in this current version, that parental field is non-editable, but you could certainly do that here. Now, the sky's the limit with this Visual Force page. You can put related lists in here, maps, whatever it is you want to do. All right, so let's move past that back to our ActionGrid Explorer, back to our account, and we're done talking about the reading pane for the most part. Just one last thing on the configuration. I'll just point out that we did change these labels here to related list and related column. I just point out that these are all sortable. So if you want to see what fields are on the grid, you can easily sort those and then uncheck them, or you can still drag them off like you always could. But these are always sortable, and so forth. So that's the end of configure. I just want to go back now down into some of these other features that are in there. First off, filter logic has moved and been improved. So previously, if you were to do a filter such as this, where you said, I want to look at California and Colorado teams, filter, and I wanted to look, but only, and say, and NFL teams. So previously, the filter would be an and query, and in fact, by default, it is indeed still an and query. Account type NFL and one of those matching states. But now with the filter logic, you can change those into the more traditional Salesforce look and feel. So I can say, I can change this one to an or, and then I'd get, California or Colorado or NFL, and I'd get the union of all of those. Okay, so you'd be able to see, there's my California, but it's not NFL, but it matches. Okay. While we're talking about that, a nice thing that you can do, this was from the previous version, but now you can sort a singular field. That's always been the case. But if you wanted to sort secondarily by a second field, or a third, or a fourth, or a fifth, you can now do that. So what you can do is you can add another sort to that. So you can sort those and say, yeah, within California, let me just do that. So let me clear that filter, and you'd say, add ascending, and add, maybe add another ascending. So you just click on the first click is the regular sorting, and then the second click is another kind of a sort. And if you wanted, you could go even further with that and say add another sort to that. Maybe I should have done it this way with that. So multi-column sorting, basically. While I'm here, you'll probably have seen these concepts of the freeze pane in here. So we now can freeze the columns. A good use case of that would be, you get, now that we have so many, we've broken the rules of Salesforce, we can have so many fields on these. People are going crazy and adding more than 15. Now that you've given them free reign, they can add more than 15 columns. Well, they have to use this concept of the freeze column. And these two columns right now are frozen. Let me just unfreeze this one. And you'll see that this column is frozen. That way, if I can scroll, so I've just kind of artificially made my screen small with the reading pane. But now that's more that Excel-like experience. So if you've got a lot of data, you don't lose track of where you are in this left-hand column. And you can freeze as many columns as you want. They'll all move to that first position. So if I was to freeze this column here, it would move into column 2 because everything's got to be on the left or the right, just like Excel. And there is a few new features with date operators. So if you haven't seen the formula editor yet, that came out in October, but I'll just demonstrate that here and demonstrate the new date formulas with that. So if I wanted to add a little formula here real fast and put some, I'll do another one here, I'll make the column name demo. You can now quickly add formulas in here. So if I wanted to do some quick little math, say 1.2, like so, I would get that created, and you can see it right over here, calculated. Oops, I got to put a time symbol in there. Sorry. There you go. Now my mathematics are working. By the way, if you ever do these formulas and you need to format them, you do have to help it with the formatting and make it look like an integer with commas and so forth. But I did want to show some of the new formulas, especially around dates. So now, especially useful for conditional formatting, when you want to do date math, such as I want to make all the dates of an activity queue. If the dates are 7 days overdue, I want those to go red. And so now you have some very easy way to do that. You just take your field and you say, insert my field, some date field, add X days to it. So this is the operator, the actual field, dot add dates, and then dot how many days you want to add to that. So you just put 7 days in there. So your formula would look like, if the due date is less than or equal to 7 days old, then it go red. So if you need help with that, I'm happy to explain. And I think the last piece here is, during the live webinar, some people were asking me to demonstrate how to make tabs. So how to make tabs such as what I showed both in the dashboard element, this concept of the ActionGrid multi-tab, or just regular old sales tabs, regular tabs. Our mission, absolutely our mission, is to kill the Salesforce list view and the related lists, by the way. So how do I do that? How do I make an action grid out of opportunities, for instance? So what you do here is you just go to Action Grid Setup, like so. I'm just going to quickly find my opportunities object, and that's when we use this type of tab creation. So if you can either do a single opportunity tab, and that would be kind of like the out-of-box Salesforce experience, one object and a pull-down list of your multiple views. So that's very much par for the course. But if you want to go a little bit cooler with that, you'd use the multi-tab experience. And so here, what you can do is you'll run this wizard and just say OK to that. And now it's going to prompt you for your objects. Remember, on my home page, I had 3 different objects. So this one I'm going to make it all opportunities, but I'll just say opportunities. Now, my little trick here is I often will let the view create this. Now, I already have a My Opportunities view from a different demo I did. So I'm just going to make this one My Open. That's going to be the label of the tab. And I'm going to say add another tab, and I'm going to go right back to opportunities. And this time I'm going to let the views do the work for me. Now, it can't read my mind. It's not going to actually know the criteria, but it will actually make a view for me called Closing Next Month. And I'll go right back to it for my next tab, create the view. You see the Closing Next Month view has been made. And I just say closing this month, like so. And we'll do one more tab just for fun, because I always like to be really close to my tasks. I'm just going to, just for kicks, choose My Open Activities here too, because I always want that really close to me. My Open Tasks, something like that. So if I save and finish this, It's going to still make a visual force page, same as before. And I was asked to actually show how to do it as a tab, even though that's actually Salesforce work. So I will show that just for this webinar. And all I do is I just say tabs. And like I said, this is nothing to do with ActionGrid. This is just Salesforce 101, how to make a tab in Salesforce. So luckily, you leave them named AG, and they'll all float to the top. So that's kind of nice. So that's the visual force page we just made, AG multi-tab. And I'll just call this Opportunities AG. And you got to give it a color. We'll give it green for money. Next. On this one, this is just the security around the tab. You can actually grab the tab manually with the little plus sign. So that I usually just leave them all on. This is a sandbox. For this, I turn them all off. It's bad form to add them to all the apps, but I will add it to the Sales app and to ActionGrid, and that's it. It's probably, 6 clicks to do that. And I've got myself now a nice little multi-tab ActionGrid experience. So I've kind of broken down that paradigm of the one object, one view. Now, here's what I would do for sure is I'd use those new features to hide all of this interface from the users. So this one was closing next month, but it's not smart enough to read your mind. You still have the view, but you're still going to have to do your work. You're still going to have to come here and say next month, like so, filter that, and then save your view. So now our tab matches our view name, and probably I should have put that into inline mode and show my reading pane, and then I'm going to use my new tricks that I've learned to hide all this interface. Bam, bam, and yeah, that's probably good enough. Right before I did that, though, I should have turned on my reading pane. And now I'm golden. And remember, I've got to save my view just like that. So I've gone a little bit longer than I had intended. On the live webinar, we went about 22 minutes, and we've gone 27 here, so I apologize for that. But lots of exciting stuff, and I am known for getting excited. So if you have any questions or want to know how to get the release, mainly what you want to do is, we'll get that showing, is you can upgrade that now by just going to the Salesforce App Exchange and repressing the Get It Now. Or on February 19th, if you're a customer or trialing ActionGrid as a prospect, you'll automatically get the upgrade pushed down into your system unless you tell us otherwise. So that's really the beauty of Salesforce, is automatic upgrades, really no risk whatsoever to these kind of Salesforce upgrades. Salesforce is what makes that so, with passing their security reviews and so forth. So very easy to do. I highly recommend getting this upgrade either manually or waiting till February 19th to see all those features. And like I said, if anyone watching this wants any of those visual force templates, especially this one where I showed the account detail, that particular visual force code. We're not in the business of making visual force pages, but we're happy to provide this particular template, and we've already done that to a few customers, and they've taken it and made other detail pages out of it, and combined multiple objects so that they've got some great data entry points to do that. So I thank you, everybody, and happy ActionGridding.